It's okay, I'm not stopping long. You know that feeling when you knock on someone's door unexpectedly and you've obviously caught them at a bad moment, but they still feel obliged to invite you in? When you realise it may well be tea time or the kids' bedtime, but you were passing and you just needed to ask a quick question, which was better asked face to face than over the phone, because, well, who really likes phone calls at the best of times? You don't have to take your shoes off, but I do. I'm a creature of habit, and my mum taught me well. When you go into someone's house, if you're invited over the threshold, you take your shoes off and you leave them on the mat. No matter how long I intend on staying, or am welcome to stay, even if it's just blitzing in and out to someone's house to help them with a quick job or carry a filing cabinet up the stairs, the shoes come off. Now, I understand how some people don't like feet, and I understand that some people think I intend to overstay my welcome when I take my shoes off. But I honestly really am just being a good boy and following the rules instilled in me by my mother, who liked her beige carpets. But don't get me started on the practice of having beige carpets and kids. At times when I really don't intend to be long, I'll keep my hat and my coat on, and you'll know I won't overstay my welcome. There's an old saying in Edinburgh where they're a bit tight and don't like unplanned company that gets aired when someone shows up on your doorstep at tea time. You'll have had your tea then? The implication is that you've interrupted something and you're not welcome around the table. Get on with it and get out. But you don't get that saying in Glasgow. Many's the time where I'd been on my rounds and felt obliged to stop longer than time allowed for a quick bite or a cuppa or a blether, because there it was often the height of rudeness to say no, and you could only say no to those who really knew you. The end of Psalm 23 uses the phrase, "And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." The idea of dwelling is when you've finally reached that place at the end of the day where you take your hat and shoes off, where the tie and top button and maybe even the belt get loosened and you slip into your slippers and your favourite seat. Dwelling is where inaction is allowed, in the place of ultimate safety. It's the final destination, not the stops along the way. The important bit about dwelling, particularly in the house of the Lord, is to just bask in his presence, to soak in relationship, and to simply enjoy being rather than doing. This season we're in isn't that final place. It's a temporary abode, a momentary rest, a blip on the timeline, a brief pause, and a moment of Sabbath. Please don't feel guilty about taking your shoes off, about resting and putting your feet up, about hanging up your coat next to the door and having a nightcap. That's allowed. But a word of warning, the shepherd hasn't finished leading us yet. There'll be another call to move, to put on our hats, tie up our laces, and to continue the journey. But we would do well to be refreshed for the journey ahead, because we don't know where we're going. We don't know what it looks like, but we do know that the shepherd will lead us. I sometimes take my shoes off in church, most often when I'm preaching or leading worship. I've had to apologise to people for it in the past, for offending them, but in all honesty, I'll do it again in the future. There's something about the intention that we have when we take our shoes off in God's presence. There's an intentionality in our stopping. There's a respect for the holy ground. And there's a willingness to dwell, however temporarily, in the presence of the Lord. When I take my shoes off, it's a sign of respect for the ground. When I take my shoes off, it's a sign of investment in the relationship. When I leave them by the door, it's a sign of readiness and willingness to continue the journey when I'm called. I'm wondering if, next time we're in church together, you'd consider leaving your shoes next to mine in the porch as a sign of willing and intent to both rest in this space, but but also to be led out. One final thought to leave you with if you wanted something a bit deeper still. What about the sheep? Psalm 23 is a sheep's eye view of God as the shepherd. So it's the sheep that's talking. And what is a sheep doing, dwelling in the house of the Lord? You see, once the shepherd has done his job well, protected, fed, and led the sheep in his flock, they're taken from the herd and they're prepared for sacrifice. They are given to God in their entirety, given even their very breath and blood in sacrifice to God. Maybe David has got another point to make. Maybe he realizes that our purpose as the sheep in God's flock is to give ourselves in praise and adoration, even to the point of sacrificing all that we are for the glory of God. I wonder what that looks like for us.